The Assessment for Learning model provides a framework for understanding how teachers working in their PLCs can design and deliver instruction and use assessment data to evaluate student learning and mastery of state learning standards. This model loosely incorporates the work of several researchers, many who have been studied in our district. This includes Margaret Kilgo's work on learning standards, the backwards lesson design principles of Grant Wiggins and J. McTighe, the design and use of formative assessment as recommended by Dylan William and James Popham, the work of PLCs as defined by Rick DeFore and colleagues, and finally, Rick Stiggin's contributions to our understanding of the role of classroom assessment for learning. The model presented here is intended to serve as a preliminary framework for understanding teachers' work in PLCs as it relates to the written, taught, and tested curriculum. It is expected that the model will be modified and improved upon as we continue to learn more about creating and maintaining quality learning systems. The first and most fundamental aspect of the model concerns how PLCs collaboratively plan and deliver quality instruction to maximize student learning, which is aligned to the state learning standards. This discussion will focus on planning at the level of the instructional unit, which is likely how many teachers characterize larger blocks of instruction and learning. Instructional units typically are organized around a related content and skills and are from 1 week to 6 weeks in length. We will also assume, for the sake of discussing the model, that each unit of instruction is broken up into 2 or more smaller lessons that may vary in length from a portion of a class period to up to a few days. Finally, our model will assume that a common summative assessment designed by the PLC will be used at the end of the unit of instruction to assess student mastery of student expectations. As an example, we see here how a 2-week instructional unit in biology course may be organized into 4 lessons over the course of 2 weeks. To plan an effective unit, teachers begin with the written curriculum to determine appropriate pacing and content, and to identify which student expectations students are to learn during the course of instruction. Using the strategies outlined by Margaret Kilgo, PLCs deconstruct the student expectations to determine the content to be learned, the context in which that learning will be applied, and the level of cognition necessary to demonstrate full mastery of the knowledge or skill. Using this information, teachers then collaborate to develop a common unit assessment that is appropriately aligned with the standards to be learned. The common assessment serves as a useful tool for PLCs as it defines how students will demonstrate mastery, which is critical information needed for effective lesson design. This approach of creating the summative assessment first in order to later focus instruction on desired learning outcomes is the crux of the backwards design model of Wiggins and McTighe. Once the common assessment has been created, the PLC then turns its attention to determining how to best organize the learning into smaller chunks or lessons. The progression of learning within individual lessons and over the entire instructional unit as a whole is organized in such a way as to maximize mastery of critical concepts and skills, and to also provide logical points along the way where planned formative assessment may be used to determine which students are ready to move on and which are in need of more time. Frequent formative assessment allows teachers and students to monitor learning so that adjustments can be made during the course of instruction. Planning for these checks at critical junctures in the learning progression informs PLCs about the effectiveness of the learning experiences they have designed. This approach to formative assessment of student learning is consistent with the work of Dylan William and James Popham. Focusing on the first lesson in the unit, the PLC may decide that a pretest is warranted to determine what students may already know about the lesson topic. This information may then be used to modify the length of the lesson or to reconsider the learning strategies that are used to design the lesson. The second lesson designed by the PLC may include a formal or informal assessment of a skill or concept that is critical to mastery of a major learning outcome of the entire unit, or the learning outcome may be important as a precursor to some later learning within another lesson. Data from such an assessment may be used to design ways to regroup and/or reteach students to ensure that they have mastered the critical learning outcomes prior to moving on to new material. The PLC collaboratively plans the remaining lessons in the unit, including planned checks of student learning along the way. The unit then culminates with the administration of the common assessment that was created by the PLC early in the planning and delivery process. Data generated by the Common Assessment is useful to the PLC in many ways. First, it provides summative data indicating student level of mastery over the learning outcomes of the unit. These data provide insights into the effectiveness of the instructional design and delivery of lessons, and may help teachers identify gaps in learning or student misconceptions. Close inspection of the Common Assessment results may also point to issues of alignment between instruction and assessment within the instructional unit. PLCs may also apply Common Assessment results formatively by determining which students are lacking in critical learning outcomes and designing remediation for these students, including adding additional time to learn the identified concepts and skills. While discussing Common Assessment results, effective PLCs also think forward to the next time the unit will be taught, determining appropriate modifications to lessons in the Common Assessment, and documenting these proposed changes for future use. It is important that this redesign process takes place within a short time period following the end of the unit, while that unit design and assessment results are fresh in the minds of the PLC members. The work of the PLCs focuses on instruction and assessment at the classroom and campus level. District-developed curriculum-based assessments, or CBAs, can provide campus PLCs with valuable information to help ensure alignment of instruction and common assessments with the state standards and the district curriculum. Typically, such calibration work by the PLC would occur immediately following the administration of the district CBA. To illustrate the relationship between the work of the PLC and the district CBA, consider a broader perspective of units of instruction occurring over a marking period, quarter, or semester. From this higher level view, we summarize the details of unit design and delivery described earlier. This summary includes the development of a common unit assessment, design of lessons, inclusion of planned formative assessments, and evaluation of both formative and summative assessment data to structure student remediation and to redesign instruction for future use. Following the delivery of the first unit of instruction, PLCs then repeat the unit design process for the subsequent units. The details of these processes have been omitted from the graphic for purposes of clarity. At the point in time in which the district CBA is administered, the PLC may have planned and delivered 2 or more units of instruction. The primary purpose of the district CBA is to inform the Curriculum and Instruction Department about the effectiveness of the written curriculum. In order to control the length of the assessments, the student expectations covered in the curriculum cannot be assessed in depth. Therefore, CBAs should not be considered to be comprehensive exams, and caution should always be exercised in interpreting individual student performance as related to mastery of student expectations. Results on the common unit assessments designed by PLCs are much more appropriate for use in determining student mastery than are results that are generated by the district CBAs. A more effective use of data generated by CBAs is in the calibration and alignment of instruction and assessment decisions made by the PLC. Aggregated performance on individual items on CBAs can help PLCs to determine what strategies and approaches may have been effective and which lessons and units may need some additional work. Of particular interest may be the context and level of cognitive demand imposed by assessment items. It is possible that PLCs adequately planned and delivered instruction for the content, but students may not have been exposed to that content in a particular context or were not required to demonstrate their knowledge at the appropriate cognitive level. Several questions have been developed to guide the PLC discussion when interpreting CBA results to evaluate the effectiveness of the delivered curriculum. It is believed that conversations arising from such questions will help teachers better understand the depth and complexity of the student expectations, better align the written, taught, and tested curriculum, and most importantly, improve student learning. This concludes the presentation on the Assessment for Learning model. Please contact the Accountability Office if you would like further information.